welcome to the Intersection Magazine podcast. This week I'm in Nairobi, where I've been attending the East Africa Com, and after some communication with a friend who actually financed my trip here, he made some suggestions to a few people that I should meet and talk to that are developing apps and solutions that are in the Kenyan ecosystem. And so we're going to talk today to George Mosomi. George is an electrical engineer as well as a data scientist, and he's in charge of an organization called the Safi Protocol. What they do is they build climate resilience using DeFi. Now, we hope you enjoy this session. We intend to give you some of the best people in the field, and people that have experience and people that can tell us a lot more about the ecosystem as we attempt to build and to create more linkages between at least Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, East Africa, and the greater continent, as we create a better understanding of how we can become more innovative and how we can build our technology infrastructure on the continent. We hope you enjoy this episode. So George, in the intro we talked about your electrical engineering background as well as your background in data science, and we introduced your company Safi Protocol. But there are a couple of terms that I'm not sure our listeners will understand or that might need a bit of clarification, such as the term DeFi, because we described your company as a building climate resilience using DeFi. So I guess just kind of enlighten us about what you guys do, what is DeFi, what's climate resilience, and tell us a little bit more about what you're building.
It's such a pleasure to meet you, Nicholas, and excited to be here and to meet the audience. My name is George Mosomi. I've spent the last 12 plus years working in the energy sector and around technology. And some of the technology terms that Nicholas has mentioned are things which are involved in the blockchain space. And maybe just to give you a bit of a background, before even I come into decentralized finance, which is DeFi, the energy sector is something which is critical or core to every nation if it hopes to develop or industrialize. Yes. And what we've seen is in the last maybe 15 to 20 years, Kenya and many other African countries have had their fair share of challenges in the energy sector. We found prices continuing to increase year on, based on mostly forex rates, inflationary hikes in terms of the local money pressure. Yes. And what has happened is that the more we are continuing on a day-to-day basis, we find that it becomes very hard for businesses to do or to carry out their operations in the country. And the key to any country, and I believe for the whole of Africa, is for us to be able to manufacture and produce local goods and services. I think we're doing very well with what we've done in terms of upskilling ourselves. Yes. We've had a lot of people who are graduating from university, people who are adding their knowledge or skill sets across the board. When it comes to data scientists, we're producing quite a good number of computer engineers and computer and software engineers. Yes. But in terms of manufacturing, I think there's still a big gap. And I believe that we have the capability, we have the powers, we just need to act on that vision to make that available to the local communities. And that will be one of the many steps that we need to take in terms of creating jobs. Okay. So for Safi Protocol, what we do is we basically try to provide power at the cheapest cost possible, and we do it in a decentralized manner. Decentralization spins around two things. First of all, it's the architecture of moving from a centralized entity when it comes to decision making and data handling. So traditionally, if you look at the good example of a bank or in the blockchain space, where you have a bank is a central repository. If I want to give Nicholas money, I'll go to the bank and tell the bank, can you give Nicholas 10 shillings or $10? And then the bank will do a subtraction on my part of $10 and put a plus on Nicholas's account and have a $10 increase on that side. And when it comes to the blockchain or the decentralized world, we have, instead of the two of us depending on a centralized authority, we all have a copy of what we call a distributed ledger, and each person has the opportunity to record as these transactions are occurring.
Okay.
And the reason we're doing this in terms of the decentralization is basically to make sure that there's more accountability, there's efficiencies in time, and there's not one central person who's making the decisions and oversight. Now, this is in parallel to, so what I've described is decentralized banking systems or decentralized finance, but on a layer of that, there's also the decentralized energy systems.
Okay.
So when we were looking at how the energy is structured in most countries across the world, you have the grid operator. The grid operator basically provides electricity, which is distributed, it generated at a central place and then distributed across multiple homesteads across the country. And the challenge with that is that when there's a fault in the system, it means you have blackouts, as you've seen in South Africa, as we all know on different parts of this continent. And that instability creates a lot of uncertainty, especially for business operators. You want to know when you're starting your operations or when you're starting your manufacturing process, it's not going to fail, or you won't have to switch on backup diesel generators. Even when I was in Lagos last year, the hotel and the conference operation where I was operating from had so many blackouts that they decided to just run the generator the whole day. And we know the cost of running generators on diesel is not only prohibitive and expensive, but it also has a big impact on climate and climate resilience.
Yes.
Now that brings me to the second layer. When you look at the ability for users to get cheap and affordable, accessible power, you have a new network that we're trying to build, which is decentralized energy.
Okay.
And decentralized energy is having the ability for users to generate and consume and sell the energy that they're producing.
Okay.
And on the easiest scale, if you think about Africa, we sit right on the equator, half north and half south.
Yes.
We have some of the largest solar opportunities in the world, and I believe that in the next 20 years, everyone should have a solar and a battery system on their rooftop. So, in summary, what we are trying to do is to give everyone a chance to own and operate these assets.
Okay.
What that typically entails, if you go into the traditional way of financing, if I am a user, I want to put a solar system on my rooftop, I'll go to the bank will tell me, George, we can give you this loan for 21%. Because we want to de-risk it. And because we want to de-risk this loan, we don't know how your operations are going to be. We also need your title deed as part of the security or collateral. And these are just many of the roadblocks that we get in the space. And therefore, what we try to do at Safi is to reduce the friction of you as a user from buying the high capital cost equipment.
Okay.
And we do that by introducing decentralized finance.
Okay.
And if you may allow me, I'll just explain what decentralized finance is. Back to that initial analogy of going to a bank to request for money so that I can pay someone else. Now, decentralized finance is whereby a group of users are able to put money together to support individual audited projects.
Okay.
And that's what we do at Safi. We allow users from across the globe to bring their global liquidity so that they can invest in these individual projects whereby there's a big risk. We try and de-risk that by having our asset management and due diligence platform, which ensures that as the investors put in money into these projects, the users on the other side are getting their projects invested in, and they can pay back over a number of period, X number of months or years, depending on the need. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm curious in terms of how much of a contribution has your training as an electrical engineer, as a data scientist, informed or helped you, in your pursuit as Safi Protocol as lead there?
Yes, that's a good question. Well, one of the things which, when I was studying my electrical engineering, it was very hard to see what the greater cause or what the greater purpose would be for my training. But the more I got involved in the industry, the clearer it became as to what could potentially be one of the most impactful things I can do in the energy sector or in the country.
Yes.
If you think about it, we are right now recording a podcast. We need electricity, we need our devices to be charged, and we need internet. And the basis of everything that is industrialization and communication is access to affordable power.
Yes.
And so when I finished my electrical engineering degree, I remember being quite not so clear on where I was supposed to go, because at that time the options were you can either go into the building services industry, which I have a lot of respect for, or you could be a consulting engineer, or you could be a contractor, which means you go and fix the wires. And contrary to what other people believe, I think most people think electrical engineers fix TVs and fridges. But those were the few options available. I have to say I was quite lucky or privileged to have an early exposure to the energy sector.
Okay.
And that helped me to guide my pathway. Over maybe another 5 years or so, I got an opportunity to work in a UK company where we were doing some very innovative things in the energy sector in the sea by building tidal waves and devices. So all in all, it's just been identifying what is next, how can I improve the industry I'm working in, and just being aware of the trends and having long-term visions of passion for this continent.
Okay. What about the data science side of your experience?
Yes, the data science side has been a very hectic one. I started when I was in university doing my undergraduate degree. And my project at that time was trying to create a Bluetooth-enabled power meter reader, which was basically trying to get as much data collected in an era where IoT was non-existent. And I was doing it on a Java platform. And we were just transitioning into an area of trying to have more impactful analysis of what the data means. And as I continued in the career, I realized, wow, you actually need to understand data, not just for data's sake, but even for the business element of how the data is affecting business decisions. How do you, for example, when you're generating power, how do you relate that to the cost of running the business? How do you understand your net present value or your IRR as you operate your assets? And therefore I had to upskill myself in the course of the last 4 or 5 years. And it's just as practical as going on to these online platforms, Coursera and the others, and getting as much information and practicing and learning how to manipulate the data that we're generating.
Okay. You mentioned IoT, Internet of Things.
Yes.
Is that what people talk about in terms of the fourth industrial revolution? So I'm a little bit curious because you mentioned some technologies and some software.
Yes.
What kind of technologies do you employ at Safi Protocol? What hardware, those kinds of tools do you?
So what we do at Safi Protocol, we have an asset management platform that was custom made for us, which is basically trying to make sure that as data comes from every single site, we can first of all verify that this energy is being produced by the solar panels. And that allows what we call renewable energy certificates. And renewable energy certificates are a proof of having generated electricity. And in the overall scheme of climate resilience and climate mitigation, carbon mitigation, you are able to show that we displaced this X amount of carbon. So, for example, a good example is if you look at areas or industries which are in far out places where they need to run diesel generators. If you can replace the diesel generators by using a solar plus battery combination, you're preventing carbon from reaching the atmosphere. And this is important, especially because when you look at Africa, I think Africa is one of the most affected continents in terms of the carbon cycle and the carbon effects. And it's unfairly punished because we are not exactly the largest contributors of the carbon cycle, but we are one of the ones which are affected the most adversely. If you look at Kenya, for example, we've been through a drought season for almost 4 or 5 years, and we just had rains. Right now it's very beautiful. But 2 or 3 months ago, we were suffering a food crisis. So for me, the element of understanding IoT and being able to use it for some of the predictability or some of the data that allows you to have more control or a more larger understanding of where you want to be as a nation is one of the most critical things.
Thank you so much. Now, in terms of do you have in terms of what are your prospects? How much of the market are you capturing? How much of the market would you like to capture? What possibilities are there for growth or scaling?
Yes.
Are you looking at other countries, for example?
Absolutely. So we started our pilot. We ran our pilot in Kenya. Yes, very successfully, and now we are moving into our neighboring countries. But we are planning to be operational in about 5 countries. Our target markets are Uganda, Tanzania, Zambia, Nigeria, Ghana, Burundi, and Ethiopia. So it's a large market, but it's easy for us to scale because we're providing financing. Most developers are quite in need of financing, and usually the gap is most sectors would be very hesitant to invest in projects which are not larger than $100,000. And this is where we come in. We come and seal that gap. Where you have smaller projects, we put them together in a pool and then allow people to invest in them.
Excellent. And what's your relationship like with investors? Do you have the possibility of people coming and partnering and maybe getting a percentage share in terms of your company? What's been the response like?
Yes, it's been very positive. I think one of the most critical things for us is that we want our investors to be aligned with our mission of climate resilience and the better good for the ecosystem. And so we are open to partnering with people who have aligned interests. We initially decided to bootstrap the organization, especially while running the pilots, because we understood that for us to be able to capture the vision that we have, we would need to have full control of the process. And we love speaking to people who are believers. We believe our biggest investors are going to be our customers, and but we are also open to getting a fair share from the larger space for us to grow.
How big is your team? What does your team consist of? Are you hiring? Is there room for new members? And what skills are you looking for?
We are hiring. We're actively hiring, especially in those target countries. So if you're a listener from any of those countries, please feel free to hit us up. Just go to our website or send a message to build@safi.eco. Our team is currently comprised of about 8 members. We have 2 carbon scientists, 2 software developers, 1 or 2 marketing folks, and 2 electrical engineers.
You've covered probably most of the bases that we were thinking about. tell us a little bit more about, I suppose it will be good to know where people can find you. What are your socials, are you on LinkedIn?
Yes.
Give us a little bit of that information.
Yeah. So my Twitter account is Mosomi, Mosomi, Mosomi.
Okay.
My LinkedIn as well is linkedin.com/in/Mosomi, Mosomi. And those are the two main areas you'll find me.
Okay. Same for, what about for Safi Protocol?
And Safi Protocol is safi.echo,
Okay.
safi.eco.
Okay, thank you, George. Thank you so much for taking your time to speak with us. I guess one last question is, I'm curious about your perspectives on Kenya's technology and innovation ecosystem. From what I know and what I've tried to cover in the past is Kenya is one of the 4 countries that's called the Big Four. So that's Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and Egypt. And Kenya is famous for attracting a sizable chunk of venture capital funds. And so I'm curious, what you see that may be lacking, or where you think your strengths are as an ecosystem. What can Uganda and the rest of the countries learn from Kenya's ecosystem?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is important. One of the things I believe in is collaboration across these countries and regions.
Yes.
So if you look at, for example, Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia, these are all countries with very unique strengths in each country.
Okay.
And I believe that even as we're building out Kenya, we need to make sure that we are supporting our neighboring countries and even they are supporting us. So the biggest opportunities, or why I see the commerce sector has opened up in Kenya, has been probably historically due to the larger organizations having set up here and the need for skilling ourselves in terms of the labor market. And we can see the same even with our neighboring countries.
Yes.
So on an individual basis, I would say, as an individual, make sure that you're increasing your skills, identify gaps in the market, solve for that specific localized context. So if I take a product for Kenya and I try and sell it in Somalia without localizing it to the context, I will fail. And the same for Uganda and Tanzania. We've seen many firms come from South Africa trying to set up in Kenya without taking into account the local context. If I may mention, one of them is a warehousing tooling facility which came with the concept without looking at the local market, and it was about to close. I'm hoping it hasn't closed, but that's just one example of not being able to look at the local context. There's so much opportunity. I spent a couple of weeks in Uganda last year.
Okay.
And it's so nice to see, friendly, eager people who are excited about the entrepreneurial journey. I just want to encourage them to continue in that space. When you're solving for your problem, by the time an investor comes, and when we create forums like this one to meet with investors and tell them about local projects, and they're seeing that it's solving that local solution, then it becomes automatic for the money to flow. Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, George. I hope we can meet again and maybe get updates about your projects as well as expansion plans.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to come to Uganda again, of course, anytime. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nicholas.